morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
We called ourselves the Legends of Lloyd Creek. For more years than I want to admit, I was privileged to ride and work cows on Vic and Janet Piva's Lloyd Creek Ranch not far from our place. A group of neighbors, and we'd ridden together for years and years, and we figured we could get the job done no matter how rugged the country or how tough the cattle. And so many times after a long morning ride, we'd gather around Vic and Janet's dinner table, where Janet had a great meal cooking, and the stories were always priceless. I remember one about a horse called Yeller and how Vic finally managed to buy him, even though the owner was reluctant to let him go.
And I looked at him and I said, well, I don't know. Well, okay. I said, if you want to arm wrestle, he said, if I beat you 2,500, he said, you beat me, you'll get him for 1,800. Remember? So we go to arm wrestling.
And this story gets pretty Western, as you'll hear. Baxter Black will be along with another gem.
The boys at the station got autographs and photographs with the world champion.
On the Rangeland News, you'll hear U.S. Agriculture Secretary Sonny Pruitt's thoughts on the future of the North American Free Trade Agreement.
Canada and Mexico continue to be major markets for United States exports.
On the Urban Saddles and Western Wear horse training file, a listener has a horse that quite suddenly showed a real change in his behavior, and we'll try and sort out why. Cowboy Poetry and our classic Song of the West, and Vic has more on how he got that horse after Terry Brown leads the ride today.
He was born to ride the rough ones. He'll live and die a tough one, but there's a whole lot more to him than you can see. He's simply complicated, overly underrated. He's everything a cowboy should be. He grew up in Wyoming, left his family and his home, and he hit the road to make a better life. At times he gets so lonely, but the adrenaline and coffee keep him searching for another bronc to ride. From Houston out to Cheyenne, with no guarantee that he'll win, just another chance to feed the fire that's burning deep inside. He'll pay to ride the devil, win a buckle for his trouble, then go searching for another bronc to ride. One win short of Vegas, but he knows that he'll make it, 'cause he's vowed to let his heart lead him on to the money and the glory and the chance to have his story written into a damn good cowboy song. From Houston out to Cheyenne, no guarantee that he'll win, just another chance to feed the fire that's burning deep inside. He'll pay to ride the devil, win a buckle for his trouble, then go searching for another bronc to ride. He was born to ride the rough ones. He'll live and die a tough one, there's a whole lot more to him than you can see. He's simply complicated, overly underrated. He's everything a cowboy should be. He's everything a cowboy should be. Woo!
legends of Lloyd Creek had been riding all morning. The horses were resting while we sat around Vic and Janet's big dinner table, and what they didn't know is I had a little portable voice recorder hidden under the table.
Were you going to record it?
I have been. I've recorded everything here so far.
Oh my God! You didn't record her with Vic, did you? Swear at me.
Yeah, you see, it's all. No, but have you heard that story, Gordon? No. About Yellow, the horse that Vince used for years? He was a heck of a dog, Yeller.
Yeah, we call him
Old Yeller.
But his real name was Jack, you know. But we call him Yeller after we bought him. And the way I found the horse was Kenny Manuel had him down there at his place. So Kenny phoned me, knew I wanted a rope horse for Vincent. So I went down, tried the horse out around the bales, and I thought, woo, he's got quite a rein on him, all right. And Kid said, well, take him home, Vic. He said, try and let Vincent try him. So I took him home. Had him here for a couple of days. Finally, this guy from Quesnel, Fort St. John, phoned me and he said, what do you think of the horse? And I said, I like him. Yeah, I like him. He said, okay. I said, what do you want for him? He said, $2,500. I said, well, that's pretty high. This goes back a few years. I said, no, I don't know. He said, well, I'll come down. So he came down. Well, he got here about, 10 o'clock at night? Something like that. So he walked in the house. He's pretty loaded, And I said, I'll tell you what I'll give you. I said, I'll give you $1,800. He said, no, $2,500. And I said, no, I won't give you that much. He says, I'll arm wrestle you. And I looked at him and I said, well, I don't know. Well, okay. I said, if you want to arm wrestle. He said, if I beat you $2,500, he said, you beat me, you'll get him for $1,800. Remember? So we go to arm wrestling. And down I put him with one arm and the other. And he just jumped up and said, that's it, I'm out of here. And he went out and jumped in his truck and down the road he went, And I thought, well, I guess I don't know what's going to happen with the horse now. About 5 minutes later or 10 minutes, up he comes again. And Vincent's here with them big eyes, And by this time it's midnight. And he's only about 14 years old.
Am I going to get this horse?
And am I going to get the horse? So the guy comes in and you won't believe what he says. He says, all right, I'll wrestle you out in the lawn. And I said, oh, come on. I said, yeah, I'll wrestle you. So I said, well, if that's what you want, we'll wrestle. So we went at 1:30 in the morning outside on the lawn. And we go to wrestling. And
well, the results of that match coming up with another song I know you'll enjoy when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Coming up is a song from a guy who will be back at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival next month. He's always a favorite and has one of the finest voices in the world of Western music. But right now, let's go back to the dinner table at the Lloyd Creek Ranch and find out if Vic was finally able to get that horse.
So we went at 1:30 in the morning outside on the lawn. And we go to wrestling. And by gosh, I finally got him down, both hands pinned to the ground. And he was just out screaming and yelling. And I said, I get the horse for $1,800. I get the horse. Well, okay, you could have him. Finally, I got it for $1,800. But the funny thing was he had a bridle for the horse, remember? He had a bridle for the horse. And I said, well, I want that bridle too, Yeah. Well, he said, I got to get, I forget how much. And I said, no, it's too much. So I made him we finally got an offer. So he had to phone his dad in Fort St. John to get permission to sell the halter, or the bridle to me. But it was but he was a good horse.
Now, you don't hear horse sales like that.
When the horse, this is the nicest part, when the horse retired, Vincent said, I don't want the horse left on the ranch because he has a big heart.
Yeah.
He'll work, he'll
keep
push himself.
Until he dies, yeah.
So he said, you know what, I'm loading him up. And he phoned Sandra and he said, Sandra, I'm bringing Yeller for Krista.
Yeah.
Krista led the Tabor parade for years, and this horse he was beautiful. He'd lead the parade, and it was just like he knew there was people on both sides of the road. He'd swing his head one way, and he'd swing his head like, it was that horse, Vince would take him to the rodeo, and then he would run for Vince. They dogged, they roped, everything,
They take him down the hooks.
5 different guys would.
And there'd be 8 or 9 guys open calves.
Oh, never,
And he had a hell of a set of brakes. As soon as you threw that rope, boy,
you'd be ready.
You should see
start backing up.
One night, and he used the rope, and I guess he dropped his loop, and old Yeller stopped and brought him right over his head.
The fine Montana horseman and trainer Jon Ensign has a great story coming up. And Vic and Janet have been friends and neighbors of ours for a long time. And, well, Billy and I were staying in the Kidney Suite down in Vancouver. Vic and our other neighbors were doing a great job looking after our place. And, I was just thinking it's a good thing there were no 6 guns handy when Vic was trying to buy that horse. They arm wrestled, and they wrestled on the lawn. Or it might have been like this classic song made famous by Marty Robbins, sung here by Tom Cole.
To the town of Agua Fria rode a stranger one fine day. Hardly spoke to folks around him, didn't have too much to say. No one dared to ask his business, no one dared to make a slip. For the stranger there amongst them had a big iron on his hip, a big iron on his head. It was early in the morning when he rode into the town. He came riding from the south side, slowly looking all around. He's an outlaw, loose and running, came the whisper from each lip. And he's here to do some business with the big iron on his hip, the big iron on his head. In this town there lived an outlaw by the name of Texas Red. Many men had tried him, but that many men were dead. He was vicious and a killer, though a youth of 24. And the notches on his pistol numbered 1 and 19 more, 1 and 19 more. Now the stranger started talking, made it plain to folks around. Was an Arizona ranger, wouldn't be too long in town. He came here to take an outlaw, alive or maybe dead. And he said it didn't matter, he was after Texas Red, after Texas Red. Wasn't long before the story was relayed to Texas Red. But the outlaw didn't worry, men that tried before were dead. 20 men had tried to take him, 20 men had made a slip. 21 would be the ranger with the big iron on his hip, the big iron on his head. Now the morning passed so quickly, it was time for them to meet. It was 20 past 11 when they walked into the street. Folks were watching from their windows, everybody held their breath. They knew this handsome ranger was about to meet his death, about to meet his death. There was 40 feet between them when they stopped to make their play. And the swiftness of the ranger is still talked about today. Texas Red had not cleared leather when a bullet fairly ripped, and the ranger's aim was deadly with the big iron on his hip, the big iron on his hip. It was over in a moment, folks began to gather round. There before them lie the body of the outlaw on the ground. Well, he might have went on living, but he made one fatal slip when he tried to match the ranger with the big iron on his hip, the big iron on his head. Big iron, big iron. When he tried to match the ranger with the big iron on his hip, the big iron on his hip.
I know folks are going to enjoy Tom Cole at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival coming up pretty soon now. Among the many great horsemen I've come to know, Jon Ensign from Montana is right up there with the very best. And we were in the middle of a colt starting competition at the main event a few years ago, and Jon shared this story.
You mentioned a bit of a story about your neighbor's dog. Come on, I'm just so curious as to what behind that.
Yeah, and you got to add a little boy and a tricycle in the story. I had, years ago, I was riding a colt down the side of a gravel road, and I seen the neighbor's dog come running down there, and of course my colt, I knew he wasn't going to be ready for it. I didn't have him prepared for it. As soon as that little boy seen me, he come pedaling down there too, and the dog run right up to that horse's shoulder, and the horse jumped and kicked over his ears and kicked at that dog and bucked me off and kicked me on the head on the way down.
Oh my gosh. And so you got the scars to prove it?
I got the scars to prove it. It was all my fault, just not having them prepared, but that's life. Things like that are going to happen, you know. Yeah. Unfortunately, they happen if you ride enough of them. Just be prepared for it.
Yeah, I guess. I've been through a few of them, and my gosh, sometimes you see it coming, sometimes it's too late.
That's right.
But this is, going to be a real nice colt. All kinds of potential, but here again, it's this artificial stopwatch, and this guy keeps saying you got 10 minutes left, Jon, and that really changes everything, doesn't it?
It really does, you know, and if I was at home, I'd take a little more time with him. I wouldn't do anything different that I'm doing that I would if I was at home. I would just take a little more time with it. Right. That's all.
Well, be interested to see what happens in the next session. We'll probably talk to you after that and after the Sunday session, so good luck there.
Sounds great. Thank you.
On the subject of great horse trainers, you'll hear from Curt Pate and his wife Tammy a little later. And Baxter Black is next when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan with a little peek at a brush with greatness. Ladies and gentlemen and followers of cowboy humor, I have carved another book from my funny bone, guaranteed to tickle your humorous. Sorry. The title is Scrambled Wisdom. Almost isn't is it? Which almost makes sense. Regardless, it's almost $20, only $19.95 plus shipping. Call 800-654-2550 or online at baxterblack.com. Here's a joke. What did he get on his IQ test? Drool. I met Jeff in the airport. His hobby was celebrity contacts, and his list included, among others, formerly known as Prince, Jesse Ventura, Jimmy Buffett, the Bionic Woman, and Jesse Jackson. But his greatest brush with greatness occurred during his summer break from Dakota State University. Jeff had returned to his hometown of Millbank, South Dakota, on the Minnesota border, population 3,500, and assumed the position of Tourism Information Director. Now, Millbank's on Highway 12, a straight shot through town, no turns, no forks in the road, no stoplight, no stop sign. Well, the preeminent tourist attraction was the historical wind-driven grist mill. It was located one short block on the south side of Highway 12. Turn at the cemetery, a little gravel drive, and there you are. Jeff took his responsibilities seriously. Each weekday he would assume his position at the grist mill and wait for tourists. He soon became adept at answering the three most common questions. Do you have bathrooms? No. Do you sell souvenirs? No. Can we go upstairs? No. He also mastered the more difficult queries. Which way to Minnesota? Turn right. To South Dakota? Turn left. One particularly slow afternoon, he guiltily considered closing 10 minutes early. He had a slow-pitch softball game scheduled, so at 4:50 p.m. he stepped out onto the porch to bring in the chair and noticed a large bright gold Cadillac turn onto the driveway and come his way. Well, already committed to his evil plan, Jeff made a great show of flipping the closed sign, spinning the combination lock, rattling the knob, and ignoring the creeping car. Well, it worked. The caddy did a slow curve, hit the paved highway, and headed west to town. Well, 30 minutes later at the ball field, the opposing team, sponsored by Amoco, was in a paroxysm of excitement. It turns out Muhammad Ali had pulled into the station to get a soda. The boys at the station got autographs and photographs with the world champion. Oh, man, said Jeff. Oh, I wish I'd have been there. Yeah, it's too bad, said his friend. He was real nice, too. He cleaned his windshield. He gave us a $10 tip. Driving a big gold Cadillac, he was. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan. Thanks for listening.
Mark your calendar for Ulrich Herford's 12th Annual Bull Sale, Tuesday, February 20th, 1 p.m. at Balog Auction, Lethbridge, Alberta. On offer, approximately 47 top-quality bulls and 12 terrific heifers. You can see them at ulrichherfords.com. These bulls are the sons of industry leaders. For more information, call Peter at 403-625-1036. That number again, 403-625-1036. Ulrich Herfords, specializing in light birth weights with great performance plus remarkable cows. That's February 20th, 1 p.m. at Balog Auction, Lethbridge, Alberta. How about a weekend pass to the 22nd Annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival, March 15th to 18th, 2018. A terrific list of entertainers, including Gary Prescott.
I once rode with the best of the cowboys back in the days of my youth.
Brian Salmon.
So who would pack the lantern? There are some buckaroos that would pack it tall and proud just like we need to do.
Tom Cole.
Out on the plains, an old cowboy sings a song to his herd.
The BC Cowboy Hall of Fame inductions, dinner shows, evening concerts, a wonderful art and gear show, the Art of the West show and sale, workshops, and everything from guitar picking to saddle making. The best place to get all the details is bcchs.com, and for tickets, call 1-888-763-2221. The news from the Rangeland is next, and this guy will be at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival too. With words written by the fine poet Mag Mawiney, this is Abe Zachariah.
He raised himself up in the stirrups, held the reins loose in his hands, leaned on the horn of the saddle well worn as he gazed at the rich meadowland. He headed due west on a cow trail which circled the old Johnson place. Was a shortcut around to his ranch near the town, where he'd soon see his sweet Jenny's face. He remembered the night that he'd met her at a hoedown in the old country hall. He had hastened the chance to ask her to dance, and they whirled to the square dancer's call. They were married that spring after roundup, and they worked side by side every day. There were 300 head on their small valley spread, which they built as their dream hideaway. His arms held her tight when he kissed her, then he handed to her all aglow a buckle so fine with two hearts intertwined, and the name of the ranch just below. He remembered the night that he'd met her at a hoedown in the old country hall. He had hastened the chance to ask her to dance, and they whirled to the square dancer's call. He remembered the night that he'd met her at a hoedown in the old country hall. He had hastened the chance to ask her to dance, and they whirled to the square dancer's call.
The news of the Rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
At the top of page 1, the North American Free Trade Agreement may or may not become a thing of the past, and what we have here are the comments of U.S. Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue on the conditions the U.S. is looking for, and in this report, you'll hear who might really be in charge.
the latest round of North American Free Trade Agreement renegotiations. This round to be held in Montreal, Canada. And Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue Monday stated his continued belief of a favorable outcome.
I have great faith in President Trump's skills as a negotiator, and I'm quite confident that he will strike the best deal possible for the United States and that we will have a fair NAFTA agreement that works well for our economy, including the agricultural sector.
The Secretary, speaking at the American Farm Bureau Federation Convention in Nashville, explained that continued resolve by U.S. negotiators.
We, the United States, have put a number of proposals on the table to modernize NAFTA and, critically for agriculture, to address key sectors left out of that original agreement, specifically dairy and poultry tariffs in Canada,
while emphasizing the importance of ag trade, particularly with our nation's NAFTA partners.
Canada and Mexico continue to be major markets for United States exports.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Well, millennials seem to be rewriting the script for the food industry, according to a report from Chicago-based market insights firm Maru Matchbox, with big food companies increasingly playing a smaller role. According to the report, The Future of Food, Are You Ready for the Millennials? A study shows 18 to 34-year-olds are more likely than older consumers to value food features that are traditionally regarded as premium, such as GMO-free and locally sourced. Millennials are also willing to pay more for these premium products, with more than two-thirds of respondents saying they will pay more for organic foods and 66% saying they'll pay more for sustainable foods. Millennials are also increasingly willing to support brands and products that address their preferences for authenticity, transparency, and responsible ingredient sourcing, says Ava During, competitiveness analyst with Alberta Agriculture and Forestry. According to the report, this thinking is spurring the growth of premium food and beverages costing at least 20% more than the average category price. The report cites a Nielsen study that finds the premium end of the U.S. food market rose 8% in 2016, compared with 3% for the category as a whole. As well, she says there's a difference in the trust level millennials have for big versus smaller food brands, with more than a third of millennials saying their trust in smaller brands has increased, compared with 18% of people aged 55 and over. Nearly half of millennials, 43%, say they will buy all their food online if possible. That compares to only 14% of people aged 50 or over. Well, if you're wondering what former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper is doing these days, he will be in Red Deer, Alberta, at the Alberta Beef Industry Conference, February 21st to the 23rd. Should be a really interesting time, and it all takes place at the beautiful Sheridan Hotel in Red Deer, one of our favorite places to stay. And you can get all the information at abiconference.ca. And we're only 2 months away from the hosting of the annual Livestock Care Conference, and it will be held at the Pomeroy in Olds, Alberta. That's March 14th and the 15th. The Alberta Farm Animal Care is celebrating 25 years this year, and they've got some great speakers, including Temple Grandin. The Big Pine Butte Horned Herefords production sale takes place at the BC Livestock Co-op in Kamloops on February 17th. It's their 23rd. February 19th, it's the regular sale at Okanagan Falls. February 20th, regular sale in Kamloops. And you can get all the information on up-and-coming sales at bclivestock.bc.ca. Meanwhile, at the Innisfail Auction Market, 2 horse sales a month and regular cattle sales every Wednesday, and lots of special bred cow and bull sales coming up as well. You can get all the information there at innisfailauctionmarket.com. And that takes us down to the final item. Couple of old cowboys were always trying to get the best of each other, and after not seeing each other for a while, when they got together, Tim says, "Hey, Sam, glad to see you." Sam says, "How can you see me if I'm not here? And I'll bet you $20 I can prove it." Tim says, "What?" "I'll take your money. Go ahead and prove it." So Sam says, "Okay. Am I in Fort Worth?" And Tim says, "Of course not." Sam says, "Am I in Calgary?" "Nope." So Sam says, "Okay, if I'm not in Fort Worth and I'm not in Calgary, I must be someplace else, right?" And Tim says, "Yeah, that's right, Sam." So Sam says, "Okay, if I'm someplace else, I can't be here. $20, please." And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up on the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, we'll try and find out why a listener's usually reliable horse was really having a behavior change when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Well, a rider hadn't been on his horse for about 2 weeks, and then when he went back to saddle him, he thought maybe somebody'd switched horses with him. His horse acted totally different than the last time he rode him, and we'll track down what happened on the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File coming right up. First, though, here's a good one from the Gentleman Outlaw, Royal Wade Kimes.
There's 18 steers in each rail car rolling down the track, taken with it at time. I knew ain't coming back. The stringing wine across this land, it ain't no place for the free-born man. Boxcars and barbed wire, a number on his days. Boxcars and barbed wire takes his world away. It's over for the drover, a light is passing him by. And for the changes on the ranges, why he'd sooner die. Boxcars and barbed wire, a number on his days. Boxcars and barbed wire takes his world away. The sun is going down on 30 and found. Boxcars and barbed wire, a number on his days. Boxcars and barbed wire takes his world away. It's over for the drover, a light is passing him by. And for the changes on the ranges, why he'd sooner die. Boxcars and barbed wire, a number in his days. Boxcars and barbed wire takes his world away. Boxcars and barbed wire, a number in his days. Boxcars and barbed wire takes his world away. Boxcars and barbed wire, a number on his days. Boxcars and barbed wire takes his world away. Boxcars and barbed wire takes his world away.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
At Irvin Tack and Western Wear, you won't find this.
Hey, yo!
But you will find this.
Welcome to Irvin's. How can I help you?
You won't find this.
What size boots you wear there, boy? You got tiny feet.
But you will find this.
Absolutely, we have your size. In fact, I've got the perfect pair for you right here.
The one and only Irvin Tack and Western Wear, something for everyone. Cowboys and cowgirls to city folks too. It's Western Wear with a welcome twist. Off exit 305 on Highway 2 by Crossfield. Open 7 days a week.
Canada's largest Western store.
A listener writes, I've been riding this horse for the last 4 years, and I ride a lot. I'd been off him for about 2 weeks, and when I caught him, he was fine, but when I started brushing him, his head came up, and when I started to lift the saddle over his back, he pinned his ears back, and he looked like he wanted to step away. I did get the saddle on him, cinched it up, and moved him around okay, but when I went to get on him, again he pinned his ears back, and he began backing up. Now, he's never done that before, so what's going on here? I know that no one has messed with him since my last ride. Well, from what you've told us, I strongly suggest this horse has a back problem. Now, horses with back pain will often refuse to do something that they've done hundreds of times. The rider might not understand why they suddenly start refusing to do what they're asked to do. And the thing is, they don't want to do it because they know it's going to hurt. Now, the first thing I'll do, before even brushing a horse like that, or any horse usually, is to hold the halter shank in my left hand and put my right hand over his back, just behind the withers. I'll have my thumb on the left side of his spine and my fingers just on the other side. And then I'll apply some downward pressure with my hand and run it all the way back along his backbone to his croup. My guess is that at some point this horse will dip his back, and that's when you know you found the sore spot. Okay, so now what? Well, back problems can be really hard to pin down. The back has several different sections with different types of vertebrae in each section. There are 18 vertebral bodies in the thoracic area, for instance, and each of those has 12 different facet joints, and there are about 360 small joints in the horse's back. So it's no wonder that a horse suffers from back pain at times. It could be a pulled muscle that might have happened when he was rolling or getting up, or even making a hard turn while running free out in the pasture. Some back problems are really nothing more than a poor-fitting saddle, or they can be related to lameness. If he doesn't get any better, I would say after a week or two's rest, I'd suggest a clinical exam from your vet and maybe a consultation with a reputable equine chiropractor. I've seen that help. Hope he gets better soon, and good luck. And for urban saddles and western wear, that is the Horse Training File. Something that I think really helps keep our horses sound is that daily feeding of Hoffman's Horse Ration, and you can find out more at hoffmanshorseration.com. Mark your calendar for Ulrich Herford's 12th Annual Bull Sale, Tuesday, February 20th, 1 p.m. at Balog Auction, Lethbridge, Alberta. On offer approximately 47 top-quality bulls and 12 terrific heifers. You can see them at ulrichherfords.com. These bulls are the sons of industry leaders. For more information, call Peter at 403-625-1036. That number again, 403-625-1036. Ulrich Herfords, specializing in light birth weights with great performance plus remarkable cows. That's February 20th, 1 p.m. at Balog Auction, Lethbridge, Alberta.
We would like to invite all our customers, cattlemen, and friends to the 37th Annual Select Charolais Bull Sale, March 2nd at 1 o'clock at the Innisfail Auction Market. 115 Charolais bulls, yearlings and 2-year-olds. View the catalog online at futurefarms.ca or bid live at DLMS. The Marshalls and Shuttleworths look forward to seeing you Friday, March 2nd. Call Daryl or Alan to view the bulls.
Curt Pate is one of the top hands and a real authority on everything from the economics of the cattle industry, marketing, nutrition, low-stress handling to starting colts and developing ranch horses and ranch roping. And a while back, I had a great visit with Curt and his wife Tammy, and I found out some of their background.
Well, the main thing is we were young and no money, working on really had the opportunity to work on some real big country ranches. And we'd go out in cow camps, and we had a child. One of the first real big places we worked on, we were out in this camp, and we had a child that was a year old. Our son was Ryle, and Tammy is pregnant with our daughter Mesa, and I'd ride out on these colts out of this canyon and be gone all day, and she'd be looking up the canyon, wondering if I was going to come back. And you know, I shouldn't have been riding the broncs I was in that kind of country all by myself, and rattlesnakes everywhere and fighting snakes out of the house. And
really?
So, yeah. Oh, it was a great, and we were so broke and didn't know what we were doing, and but we were living a life, and it was when we think back, that's our really happy times. We were just us, you know, and the children, and it was just I was really exploring the horsemanship and the cattle stuff. And to me, and I think Tammy as well, it was a time that I wish we could get back to sometimes.
Yeah, isn't that something? You know, that's the foundation and kind of the roots of what we're doing today with horses and cattle and that kind of thing. But it's living in those conditions. But rattlesnakes, man, are you afraid of snakes, Tammy? Do they bother you at all?
No, I'm at one with snakes. They go one way and I go the other.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, but no, just the lifestyle and being able to bring the kids up that way, and really not having a plan, but loving the lifestyle. And we definitely didn't have a plan to be horse clinicians, But all of the work that Curt did, riding colts and understanding the horse and working with cattle, prepared us for the life that we live. And also Curt, you know, he was an auctioneer and a rodeo announcer, so he has a gift of communicating. But I think it's those years that definitely prepared us for what we get to do now.
Well, in those situations, it's the real world for horses, and it's you know, you trust your life to those horses, and maybe he is green, maybe he is a colt, and you're out there a long ways from headquarters or a long ways from cow camp. When something really goes wrong, that horse might come home with your saddle, and who would even know where you are, you know?
Have no way of knowing, and there was no cell phones in those days or anything like that. So, but it was a great life, and then what, you know, after that we kind of got on the road, and we raised our kids in a pickup truck, homeschooled, went, and you know, they didn't get the ranching lifestyle that we grew up with. So we were on the road doing school in the truck, staying in motels, and but they were always horseback and so when they were about 15 years old somewhere, 13 and 15, we ended up partnering on a real big ranch in Miles City, Montana, and we run 2,800 yearlings. It was Tammy and I and the two kids, and we were wondering how the kids would handle it, and they just jumped in, and they really understood handling cattle. The horse stuff just carries right over, and we had a good time and got along pretty good. So that was a great experience.
And after hearing that, you might be interested to know that Curt is going to be at the Saskatchewan Ranch Management Forum really quickly here, February 9th, 10th, and 11th at the Masonic Lodge, 1755 Main Street North in Moose Jaw. And if you'd like to find out more, like Curt will be covering all kinds of different subjects with cattle handling, forage, and do's and don'ts of cattle marketing feed and making feed with your calculator, and a lot of other things. It should be really interesting. You can get more information at 1-866-457-2337. That's 1-866-457-2377. Our classic Song of the West coming up with a kind of a B-movie cowboy star that you may or may not remember, and the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight coming up when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. It's time for this week's classic Western song, and I guess I was, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13, and I would go to every performance of the Rodeo of Champions in the old Edmonton Gardens back there in the 50s. And in those days, they'd always book a contract act to perform during the intermission. And that's the first time I saw one of my heroes, Rex Allen Sr. and Coco, live and in person. And one year the star was Jimmy Wakely, and the PA announcer, Cy Talon, boy, one of the greats, introduced him, and Jimmy came riding out on a beautiful golden Palomino that he'd borrowed from Tony Ziegler, the founder of the old Edmonton Sheriff's Posse. Now, in 1939, Jim Wakely made his screen debut with the Jimmy Wakely Trio in a Roy Rogers Western, The Saga of Death Valley. In the 1940s, Wakely groups provided songs and musical support for several B-Westerns, including appearances with, Hopalong Cassidy and Gene Autry, just to name a couple. He was sometimes referred to as the low-budget Gene Autry. He actually appeared in 28 Westerns at Monogram between 1944 and 1949, and he also wrote a lot of fine Western songs. One of my favorite is this kind of a bluesy one called Moon Over Montana, sung here by the great personality from Texas, Trudy Fair.
Silvery light.
while a cowboy dreams. Moon over Montana, shine through the night. Moon over Montana, lend your silvery light while the herd is lowing. You're so near, it seems. Light the lonely prairie while a cowboy dreams. While the herd is lowing, you're so near, it seems. Light the lonely prairie while a cowboy dreams. While a cowboy dreams.
Perry Jacobson has spent most of his life on the back of a horse. He was raised on a ranch, spent many years as a working cowboy, and then for a long time he was the chief warden at Banff National Park. Then he retired from that job and went back to cowboying and playing music and writing good songs and poems. Here's Perry with one he wrote called In the Bunkhouse.
The yellow light in the bunkhouse casts eerie shadows on the wall. The northeast breeze curls to chimney smoke, early signs signaling the coming fall. From a peg on a wall hangs a jacket and a pair of old rosin-stained chaps. Under a faded Charlie Russell painting hangs a battered and sweat-stained hat. The wind-sculptured face of the old wrangler concentrates in tying the fight or knot. The adept and calloused hands work quietly. He seems to be in deep thought. He's back in time as a young cowboy, full of ideas and chasing his dreams. Horizon promised exciting opportunities. His head was full of visions and schemes. He smiles as he recalls friends and ranges and a sweetheart with long golden hair. They are all lost in the trail dust now. There's not many left who really care. His treasures are measured in memories. In some way he feels he's a rich man. No doubt his possessions should be greater, but then life doesn't always follow your plans. He can't help but think life is something like the tying of the hackamore knots. In the hands of a master develops a pattern. Hands of the foolhardy doesn't amount to a lot. It's hard to believe how the years slip by, then suddenly you're tired, old, and alone. He ponders the few squandered chances of setting roots and establishing a home. He stands up, shakes out the hackamore rig, shakes each knot to make sure they're pulled tight, pulls off his boots, lays down on his roll, yawns deeply, then turns off the light. Old Lobo's somewhere out in the draw. He sounds off with a mournful wail. The yellow light in the window fades to dark. The old wrangler's dreams are back out on the trail.
Well, thanks so much for making the ride again this week, and I sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. And as always, many thanks to the support crew that helps keep this whole operation going, and that is Mark and Kathy McMillan. They have been working really hard on the final touches of the 2018 Kamloops Cowboy Festival, which of course is March 15th to 18th. And there's going to be something new this year. The festival is going to hold its own dinner dance featuring the Tom Cole Band, consisting of my little brother Jim and my bass player, Uncle Mike. And a few others are probably going to sit in too, but the music will be danceable and fantastic. And Ronnie's Ribs are supplying the barbecue. Get a load of this: potato salad, sweet pickle, Lone Star slaw, cowboy baked beans, Southwest salad, and sweet cornbread muffins, and freshly made dessert. And the biggest thing about it is Texas-style barbecue brisket, hickory smoked for 14 hours, low and slow, for that old West flavor. Oh man, what an evening that's going to be. Tickets are only $39.99, including taxes and gratuity. Great way to kick off the Kamloops Cowboy Festival. And Billy and I were watching Heartland the other night, and I am pretty sure I saw Tim pick up a copy of Canadian Cowboy Country magazine, sit down and start reading it. Now, if you'd like to subscribe to that fine publication, see cowboycountrymagazine.com or give them a call at 1-800-943-7336. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.